I'm Steve Gilman, and this is Brand Story, where we help you build stronger, more sustainable brands by sharing insightful conversations with brand leaders, marketers, and professional storytellers. So our guest today, Scott Witthaus.
Don't stop learning stuff. If I've with AI and even with nonlinear editing, when Avids came out and Final Cut and all that, I saw way too many colleagues put their head in the ground and drag their feet saying, this cannot happen. It will not happen. It's going to take my job. It's like, it's only going to take your job if you stop learning about it and let it take your job.
Welcome to Brand Story. I'm your host, Steve Gilman, and today is our 100th episode. It's quite a milestone for us, and we've had so many incredible guests, and we're so proud of the podcast and all the meaningful conversations we've had on here. And most importantly, thank you all for listening in. It really does mean a ton to us. So our guest today for our 100th episode in conversation was also our very first guest, Scott Witthaus. Scott is one of my favorite people. He's an incredible storyteller, innovator, and entrepreneur. He currently manages Witthaus Editorial, founded Low Country Creative, was faculty at the VCU Brand Center for over 17 years. He is a board member at Not Alone and recently became a board member of Friends of the Blue Ridge. And soon he's going to be teaching at VCU Robertson School of Communication as adjunct faculty. So, hi, Scott. Welcome back to the program at 99 episodes later.
Wow. Did you do one like every day to get here? I mean, it seems like a while back.
It was. We've been like 2 a month.
Is that right?
Yeah.
How many years ago was that you started?
Yeah. So right at the end of 2020. And then,
COVID time.
Yeah. So we'd take breaks and,
right.
And
wow.
we usually turn it off in December and let everybody have a break. But yeah, we've been really consistent with 2 episodes every single month.
Wow, that's a lot. I am doing well. Thank you for having me. This is always fun, and it's always a surprise on what we might talk about. It could be anything, but thank you again. This is fantastic.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming back on. I love the symmetry of you being our first and 100th guest. So that does mean you're locked in for every milestone episode. You realize
200, here we come.
200, right. Here we come. That's where we're stopping next. So one of the first things I wanted to talk to you about is you recently took a trip to the Camino in Spain, the incredible walk that people do. And you did a post about it on LinkedIn. And I just loved your perspective from that post. And I think it's such an important thing to share. You were talking about how important it is to take breaks from the industry we all work in. Can you just tell me a little bit about that experience, what it meant to you?
The Camino de Santiago my wife wanted to do it forever. It was one of her bucket list things. So she got to do that. When I left the Brand Center, when I decided to do that last year, I knew I wanted to take some time and just clear my head out and do that type of thing. Then, of course, Hurricane Helene dropped a tree on our house. So that took a few months to deal with too. But the Camino just kind of highlighted to me something I would tell my students all the time, and that's the importance of getting away from what you're doing. I've seen way too many folks, and this is just the industry that I taught in and worked in for a long time, excuse me, advertising folks who would live, eat, drink advertising. Their friends were all advertising people, and the backyard barbecues would be all advertising people. Yeah. And they'd stay up till midnight. They'd miss their kids' softball game. They'd eat meals out of the vending machine. It's just, to me, is not a healthy thing to do. It's not healthy physically. It's not healthy mentally. I've seen and I've had former employees of mine when I was running post-production companies in Richmond move on to larger agencies and literally work themselves into the hospital with dehydration. And it is just not good. And back in the old days, we'll do that whole thing.
We got a few of those this time.
Yeah, we had forced breaks. We had forced breaks because the FedEx truck came at 6:00 in the evening, and that's when the tape had to be ready to FedEx to your client wherever they may be.
Right.
As bandwidth in the internet has gotten better and better, those breaks became shorter and shorter till right now it's an always on type of thing.
Yeah.
And I at the Brand Store when I worked there, especially early on, the school was open 24/7. Students could be there, and they would be there. I would come in the morning, they'd be sleeping with their head down, on their laptop. nothing, like your parents used to say, nothing good really happens after 1 a.m. while you're trying to stare at a screen and expect something to come out.
Yeah, for sure.
Again, we had that forced break where the FedEx guy had to go.
Yep.
And then FedEx didn't deliver till the next morning at 9 o'clock on the East Coast. So we had that. We could get away from it and get fresh eyes on it in the morning. And, the generation of professionals who are in our industry now, that is something you have to force yourself to do, because you could work 24/7. You could be on Zoom with your client all the time, especially if there's time zone differences. So, I used to preach that a lot. And when we did the Camino, when we did portions of the Camino, we did not do the entire 500 miles. We did about 170 miles of it.
That's enough.
Excuse me. And, we had Rick Boyko was there, who organized the trip for us. But then everyone else was not in the industry, and so Rick and I obviously talked a little advertising, but then we just talked about, we talked to people all around the world who are walking with us, other pilgrims. And I came back so refreshed and so ready to go. It just, it was just learning about stuff outside of the industry, getting away from it, and since I've been back, it is pretty much nonstop. And, now I've got friends with the Blue Ridge. I'm on that board, and potentially some stuff with VCU. But I feel good. I feel refreshed. And I think that's really, really important for people to make sure the industry doesn't make them lose a friend or stay away for a family member, or, like the employee I had, work themselves into a hospital.
It's easy to jeopardize.
It was a great takeaway for that too, because I think everyone who was on that trip with us came back charged up.
That's amazing. Like, what a cool journey to go on, and what a good thing for you and everybody on it. And I think prioritizing travel, for one, in the industry we're in, if you're going to be a storyteller, you have to go out and experience life.
Right.
You have to see how other people live. You have to meet people. You have to have different experiences yourself, or you lose perspective,
Right.
Especially with digital media and the speed of everything we're working on. So yeah, man, I think that's an incredibly powerful message. And I think it's really important.
I would really, and I did this when I was teaching over at the Brand Center, and, we'll do so when I work with students in the future, is walk away from it. Just staring at a screen, waiting for the inspiration to drop out of the sky doesn't work. It is living in the real world, living real experiences, finding out what the person across the street from you does and what they like to do, rather than going to the vending machine, getting a Red Bull and stare at the screen again. It's so important to give your brain a break, come back with fresh eyes in the morning. We always had, I know I'm editing with you, we had a kind of this tradition. It's like, well, we like it now. It's 6 o'clock and we have to get we like it now. Let's everybody take a break. We'll come back in the morning. If we still like it, then we may have something good. Right. We were able to get away and do our thing and freshen our eyes up, get some sleep. You've got to force yourself to do that now. The students and everybody else need to just get away from it, get out into the real world, because, people outside of advertising really have no idea in marketing, and they don't have no idea what we do.
Yeah.
Hey, that Geico ad was funny. Did you do that? No, but
no,
okay.
I didn't do that. Yeah. And it's what's crazy about that is that they are really demanding careers, and no one is just creative and innovative on demand. So if you don't feed the part of your brain and body and soul that is creative, you're going to run out of gas. I mean, so getting breaks, I still use, what we used to do when we worked together, where we would just say, okay, let's go sleep on that. If we like it, we like it in the morning, then we're on to something. Like, I still do that now, because after I've looked at something, I don't care if I'm looking at it on a review page or a site. Sometimes I just need a minute to let it percolate. And then usually the best idea of whatever struggle we're trying to solve, whatever problem we're trying to solve, comes from that time away, not the time immersed in it.
It's funny. I recently did a commercial for a client, and it was months ago now. It was done, and I was messing around on Final Cut and Premiere, and I took that spot that I had cut, and I moved something, and I was like, damn, that's so much better.
It makes you crazy, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. Why didn't I think of that? I know, that was a break of 4, 5, 6 months, and so again, getting away from it will let you get back to it a lot fresher, and you may have a different rhythm you're thinking of or feeling. And, so again, the Camino was a gigantic getaway,
Yeah.
a gigantic, reset. I don't say everyone's got to do the Camino, but something. And I saw some of the responses to that post. Some of my former students said, one guy said, I got to the Mojave Desert. That's my thing. I need to go out there again. And I said, that's it. That's exactly right. That is as far away from the biz as you can get.
Yeah. Sometimes it's the ocean. Sometimes it's a completely different atmosphere.
Exactly.
Our VP, Lindsay, just went all over Europe to several different countries, just traveling around and experiencing things. And I think it really does like refresh not only your creativity, but your resilience.
Yes.
Yep. And I think it's so important. And people who don't take those kind of breaks, I think with any career that's demanding, self-care is probably one of the most important parts of what you do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're no good to anybody if you work yourself into the hospital, to yourself, your friends, your family, your client, and there's a lot of, and Steve, we could go off on this because, you and I can talk, but there's a lot of times in the industry where, there's an arc to a story. And a lot of times you'll just go at it in exhaustion and you've gone over the arc and it's actually going back downhill.
Yeah.
You may have hit the peak yesterday at 3:30 and nope, you're not going to take that break. And it didn't get any better.
Yeah. You're just going to ultimately ruin it, which is what happens sometimes when you have a lot of people involved and a lot of opinions. It's sort of this delicate balance of with storytelling of like, okay, let's leave it alone.
Right.
Because that's what this piece needs to be. And sometimes if you get away from something, you can make a tweak that makes it better. But man, I've never seen if someone just keeps going, it always, you're right, it goes full circle and ends up in the trash again. And then you're like, what are we even trying to do here?
Yeah. And that's, as an editor, and any editor watching this will know that you save every version you can because, usually they'll come back the next day and say, do you remember what we did just before lunch yesterday?
Yep.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I have it right here.
The version, because
I have this version right here.
We like that a little better.
Yeah, I think I've done that to you a million times, actually. So
that's okay.
Let me talk to you a little bit. I know with VCU, you've been doing some mentoring with the business school. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Because that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah. So when I, like I said, I made the decision to leave the Brand Center last year, but I became what's called affiliated faculty with the university. And that means I still have, my hand in the game a little bit. And the School of Business has a mentoring program for their Fundamentals of Business class. So what happens is, so it's a regular semester long class, but 3 times remotely, and then 1 time will be in person. They ask for mentors to come in and, they have topics for each of the sessions. One was on leadership and management. What's the difference and what makes a good and bad one of each. Another one was dealing with difficult situations in the business place, difficult conversations. And then the other one was dealing with teamwork and how the dynamics and the challenges of teamwork. And certainly the teamwork one we went through at the Brand Center a lot because we all worked at teams,
Yeah.
So they bring a lot of professionals from around the community. We had well more mentors, I think, than students in that class. And it is just a great opportunity for the students. I mean, these students are, I had a freshman, I had a junior, so they can take these classes, but they can even at this point in their career. And a lot of it was, we were talking about management and leadership, and one of my mentees had worked at Chick-fil-A for a long time. I said, well, there's a good organization to look at for this type of thing,
Absolutely.
So even at that level of their career, they can say, hey, I saw this too, and this is what happened, and this is what it felt like, or whatever. So it just gives the students an opportunity to, to ask the questions that they may not want to ask in the workplace, and then hear a lot of different points of view. And this school of business does a great job with the students in this online course. They're using word clouds and things like that, and it really I enjoyed it. I really did enjoy it.
What a cool thing to do. And I think it's in your nature. Like I watch how helpful you are to people coming up in this industry. And if you follow Scott on LinkedIn, and if anyone listening to this doesn't, please do, because he's so consistently shares job opportunities throughout the industry, probably more consistently than anybody I know. So,
well, I mean, I think right now it's really hard for people getting out of school, getting a job in the industry right now.
it is.
We've got economic situations, but we've got AI, which is making things difficult. So it's one of the things when I mentor students, I said, well, just connect with me on LinkedIn, because I'm constant. When I see a job or an internship, I will repost it to my network so you can give it a try, because it's tough out there right now. It's you can't sugarcoat it, and anything we can do to pay back a little bit, and that's kind of the mentoring thing to do, is kind of pay back a little bit and help this next generation, because it is challenging. I was just reading a Wall Street Journal article today. I'll have to send it to you about
please do.
About Gen Zs, and millennials may have been the last group to really understand a starting position, and where Gen Z is getting this starting. How do they start?
Yeah,
because all these entry level positions are being wiped away, but with AI. So how do you get into the industry? So any way we can kind of help give back a little bit. I mean, reposting a job, is not terribly difficult. And if somebody, especially one of my connections, anybody really gets the gig, that's what you want to do.
Yeah, I really respect how consistently you do it, though. It's very encouraging, I think, to people. And then
probably bothering too. It's like, oh, there's Witthaus with him in the job post.
There's got to be someone that's having that experience, sure, but not me. I think it's cool.
Yeah. I know somebody's like, geez.
Yeah, somebody's like, God, all right already. I think you've always had so much educator in you, and obviously 17 years at the VCU Brand Center it's very ingrained in what you do. But I've always appreciated about that with working with you, is that if we were doing an edit and it was really demanding, you're always so good at explaining what was possible and what wasn't and why. And I think that's just a remarkable quality. So one of the things I did want to talk to you about, because I think this is an opportunity, when AI started to be on the forefront of what we do for a living, with advertising and marketing, and especially editorial, instead of you putting your head in the sand, I've more than almost anyone I know, you dove in head first, and you're like very passionate about learning and sharing about it. So what's your point of view now? Like, you've been out of the VCU Brand Center for about a year, right?
Right. So go ahead.
No, go for it. I'm just curious how AI and all that's working into how you're looking at things now.
When I first did AI, and I think the first show was almost before AI.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
I think ChatGPT came out in November of 2022, I believe. And I gave my first assignment to my visual storytellers. Now, these were experienced designers and strategists. It wasn't the creatives. And I gave them their first assignment in March of 2023.
Wow.
And it was god awful. It was terrible. It was oh my God, this will never work, and there's 6 fingers and there's a guy in the corner. Literally, they were doing something for, I think it was it YouTube or Roku? And they had a family generated a picture of a family watching Roku TV. And in the corner was this little old guy that just showed up randomly. It was awful. Yeah. By the fall of 2023, Tom Sharp, who's the head of art direction over at the Brand Center, wanted me to give the creatives, I shouldn't use that term, the art directors and copywriters, because we're all kind of creative, that same assignment. And the advancement from March to probably the end of October, pretty significant.
Yeah.
By the next year, March of 2023, right, or 2024, I was like, we could take this and put it in front of a client and say, this is what your commercial will look like. I had 2 special ones that there's one for Crayola that some students did. First time they ever touched AI.
Yeah.
And there was another one for a fashion product that probably I'm too old to even recognize what the brand was. And I said, we could take these in front of the client and say, we don't have a storyboard. We have this, and we're going to hire real people and do that type of thing. So when I left the brand center, one of the first things I did before the tree fell on the house was I signed up for a class with a company called Curious Refuge out of LA.
Yeah.
Heavy into generative AI production and post. And it taught me a ton.
Yeah.
And it was amazing what you can do. But recently, first of all, I realized in that class, I could never keep up with everything that's coming out.
There's no way.
There's no way. And you're going to be, a generalist. And as I look at this more and more, as I watch new products and techniques come out, I'm moving less away from the generative image creation because that can happen almost anywhere. I was playing with Gemini this morning.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean, I hadn't played with Gemini before.
It's gotten a lot better. It's gotten a lot better.
Oh yeah. I was like, okay, this is another tool that can be used, and as good as ChatGPT, maybe not as good as Midjourney, whatever. I really started leaning into the other things that AI can do in this industry. Strategy. Again, there's going to be a lot of people scream at me saying you're taking our jobs, but
right.
the ability to assist in a concept creation, give me the outline of this program. How will this work? I even got down into, hey, create a budget for me in a mid-sized city. What would this production cost? Now, there was some hallucination in there by some of the, but I'm really leaning into more of that. On almost the back end stuff, the stuff that's not seen on the screen. I mean, it's getting so easy on the screen, and you still need the talent though. But if I'm a DP or a videographer or a cinematographer, that person can create a prompt with way more knowledge than I can. That's one of the things I realized when I took Curious Refuge's AI filmmaking courses. I'm not a DP. I can't tell what lens would be good in here. As a director, I can say, make the camera dolly across, whatever. So those people with those talents are still going to be absolutely needed in AI production. But I got really into custom GPTs in ChatGPT. And I think you and I talked about this. I posted about that a long time ago. And I created my own GPTs, which you can do, that assisted me in AI filmmaking. So I created a prompt generation custom GPT that I would say, this is what I want to do. I am using Midjourney. Can you give me the prompt that would get me there?
That's so cool.
That type of thing. And it's amazing because, again, then you have a assistant, if you will, and there's going to be a lot of people throwing rocks at their screen when I talk like this, but the genie's not going back in the bottle. So let's not even pretend that's going to happen. I decided just for fun to create a horror film production GPT and I don't do horror films, but I said, okay, that's kind of interesting. But then I said, I would like this to be from Alfred Hitchcock's point of view.
Yeah.
And I want you to respond to me as Alfred Hitchcock would. Okay. So I'm really excited. So I type in the first thing. What is the best way to open a horror film? And, normal GPT would say, oh, you want in black and white Dutch angle, stormy night, maybe a cat or screeching in the background. But instead, because I had said, I want this to be Alfred Hitchcock to help me, it said, the opening shot, the first course in a dinner of terror, and went down that way.
Yeah.
And it really was, okay, this is really cool. This is really, really neat. And I'm like, sorry, there's a helicopter flying over my head.
I think we're good.
It was really interesting where when you start extrapolating that out, you could have Albert Einstein teach a physics class.
Yeah.
Because of all the stuff that's out there on the wild, wild web, you could have him teach a physics class.
Yeah.
And look at, I don't know if you saw recently what Rick Boyko posted about ad legends.
Yeah, I did.
You see that?
Yeah.
That is really interesting because he's got their permission. So now smaller companies and smaller agents could say, I would like Burnback, the
Yeah.
style he would do this idea in. Tell me how to do this. And it goes, and it's really amazing stuff. And
It's such a cool like force multiplier,
yeah,
I think that's what I started to understand about because I've done some of the same things and getting, being able to get like, Dan and Chip Heath's take
yeah,
on how persuasive a line of copy is
yeah,
doesn't remove the human being and the talent from the equation
right.
because what I've seen is when people try to do straight outputs, there's always some sort of flaw because the humanity in it is lost.
It,
But to use it as something that helps us, because we're all trying to like draw on all these different perspectives and all this different inspiration that's inside us and that we've experienced. So it really just becomes, I always think of it as like a really talented, you know, very smart graduate assistant
exactly.
that is always there ready to help me.
You're,
But if I don't know what to ask, I get crap.
Yeah, and the thing is too, you got to remember, and in some ways, as I get deeper and deeper into this, I'm more and more convinced that human input and human, again, AI is ones and O's, right?
Yeah, right.
AI is ones and O's. We are beautifully imperfect analog beings, right? I don't know if AI could say, as we've been in a lot of edit suites, can say, hold that shot till she blinks her eyes 3 times.
Yeah.
Just hold it, because that's where the emotion is.
It's
I'm not
very
sure
good
AI
at
can
that.
do that. Right?
Yeah, and I think that's the most important thing, one of the takeaways about storytelling. And you and I have talked a bunch about the humanity of storytelling and how important that is, because for a story to connect, it has to make you feel something.
Right.
And we are emotional beings. Everything
Right.
we do is guided by emotion. Even if we think we're acting logically, usually there's emotion behind it.
Right.
So when you're a storyteller, you're trying to get other people to feel things.
Yep.
So I think you can very easily with AI impress them with a lot of cool stuff.
Right.
And there's a place for that. Sometimes that's really all you're trying to do.
Yep.
But it was interesting because I was playing with it, and then at the same time we were making a series of testimonials. And one of the testimonials we were making was this very heartfelt story about a mother whose child had gotten injured. And I swear it's like every moment, like if we're going to cut away here, or we bring in someone else talking about it and make the audience wait to hear back from the mom and how she was feeling, how does that make us feel? And it's like you're the tuning fork as a human being. And AI is terrible at that.
It is terrible at that. And, it again, with my students in visual storytelling, we used to, especially the last couple of years, I'd set an over-under for the Super Bowl. I said, how many ads, are going to say they were in last year, 2024, will say they were created with total AI, or even 2025. So we set the over-under at like 2.5 or something. And I think there was one more graphically driven that was all AI, and then a colon. So I said, okay, let's flash forward 5 years. Let's set an over-under for the Super Bowl. How many ads will say created by pure human talent? Right? Because I got a feeling, this may be episode 200. We're getting in a point where people are kind of getting tired of it, in ways, and it's going to kind of reflect back to humanity, and stuff that is done, by humans is going to become more valuable, because good stuff that can be done by humans. There's plenty of crap that can be done by humans, plenty of crap that can be done by AI. But I think good stuff that is done by humans with, our beautifully imperfect selves, that's going to become more and more valuable going forward. Because like you said, in that edit you were talking about with the mother, holding on that shot a little bit, or creating something where the viewer really wants to see what's coming next, that type of thing. And I'm not sure ones and O's can do it right now. Again, I talked about it, and I talk about it to students as well, and anybody who'll care to listen and not walk away, is that how, important we are in the process, and our failings and our slowness sometimes compared to AI is the beauty of what a story becomes, that type of thing. And I don't, I really do think that in the future there'll be a job description called human experience designer. And that's going to be really important to a lot of brands, because AI is going to get to the point where people are tired of it. So it becomes, what is the human experience? We know what the AI agent can do. We know the robot that I sometimes want to throw my phone out into the street and watch it get run over because
Right.
I can't get through. We know all that stuff. So I think, brands are going to be looking for that human experience designer that'll sit above and say, okay, this is a 360 look at this. And wherever a human touches, we better make damn sure that that experience is a good one.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. You and I have talked a couple of times about, and I firmly believe this, I think our humanity is going to be the absolute top differentiator moving forward. Like, since I work in healthcare a great deal, that's a place where real human beings and real stories resonate like nothing else.
Yep.
And I think other brands are going to see that because anything that dehumanizes, we're going to start to ignore more and more.
Yep.
And the more of the, like, I don't know about you, man, everywhere I go, I start to just see AI produced crap. And there's a ton of it. And at first, it's like when the internet came around, we were all jazzed by, we saw our first kitten video.
Yeah.
I thought it was the coolest thing we've ever seen. Now it's like, oh God, another one of those things. So I think real stories and real people and all of that is going to be even more of a cachet than it already is.
Absolutely. And, when you look at the medical industry, there is the place where AI is making a tremendous stride and helping diagnose and being that really great assistant to a doctor when inputting all the patients, what's going on with them. But to tell their stories, that's our job.
Something else completely.
That's human, and how this particular medical institution or treatment or whatever changed their lives, solved their problem, whatever. That's our stories, But again, AI is, maybe the cure for cancer one day as it gets more and more data in and figures out what's going on.
And I love it.
There's a lot of that,
I agree.
of the nuts and bolts stuff it can do.
Yeah, and I love it as a research assistant, But one of the other things I've learned that you've probably run into, I've been talking to a few people about this, is that I've gotten to the point where I have to argue with it. Because what I've seen is that it really wants to tell me how great I'm doing.
Right.
And how awesome that question was. And I'm like, no, it wasn't. That question was crap.
Right.
So I'll double check it and cross-reference it. And it's really important to do that because it has a bias to please you because it wants you to be a customer.
And the other thing you've got to look at too, and I've noticed this teaching, and I noticed it just recently when I was asked to kind of beta test a service that a group of people I know are putting together, and it's an online, it's very AI driven, and you've got to be really careful about diversity with what AI puts out. It tends to be young and white, right? So you've got to be, and I told my feedback was you really need to be careful if you're going to let AI just do this, because I tried this 4 different times and I got 32-year-old white people having a great time, and we saw that in class too, and it's something that I don't know why, but it's something we need to be aware of because it seems to be a bit of a bias there, and we need to make sure we understand it and fight that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So talking about human storytelling and how powerful it can be made me think of some of the work that you've done over the years, but there's something you've worked on recently. And Rick Boyko is actually coming on the podcast next week.
Oh, great.
And you're ending our season 5 and he's going to start our season 6.
Good.
So, you worked with him, I think, on about 4 episodes of the series for the Advertising Club of New York. Right. And we also had Gina Grillo, the president of the Advertising Club, on the podcast. So can you tell me about the series? Because what you guys are doing, and I know you've worked on a few of them, I looked at a couple that I think you edited, and they are incredible.
Yeah, it's called the Inspiration Series, and Rick created this idea of, again, giving back, helping folks coming up in the industry see how people's whose shoulders they may be standing on right now got into the industry and what's their inspiration and what they've learned over the years. And I'm on to my 5th edit right now. We've just started Danny Robinson of the Martin Agency.
How cool.
So it's a great story, great human being, great story. And I think they just, when you look at a Lee Clow or a Dan Wyden,
Yeah.
those are legendary names in the industry. But when these videos get in there and humanize them and show you where they started, one of my favorites was Brian Collins, and he was very open with his story and his travel. So they're really nice 18-minute little mini documentaries, 20 minutes. And, personally, I think every ad student, that should be, I don't know how he's got a whole lot of them up there right now, but if you got a 15-week semester, there should be 18 minutes carved out of every class every week to watch one of these.
Yeah. I think they're really powerful. And I think anyone in marketing,
yeah,
because an ad student, anyone that's going to be in any kind of creation of any kind of marketing can learn from these interviews. They're just incredible because you see all the struggles these people went through and then what they learned from their experiences. And there's a ton of analogies to our daily life right now.
Absolutely. And we just finished one that just got posted, I think right when we got back from Spain in October, on Donna Weinheim, who was Where's the Beef, Pizza. But she was a young woman coming up in a very, Mad Men, white male dominated. And some of the stories she had were kind of interesting for that type of thing. And again, getting back to the AI, in one of these stories, she kind of didn't choke up, but really had to gather herself a little bit. And we let that happen because it was a very powerful moment. So, so you can see how, these legends have where their inspiration comes from. And the beautiful thing about it was the ones that I have done, could be Silverstein, done those guys. So many of the subjects talk about giving back.
Yeah.
Giving back, Danny's talking about, he wants to show people that people of his skin color that are like him this is an industry for them. You can do this and be included. And that's very inspiring in its own right, that so many are giving back.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And we have like a lunch and learn thing that we just started doing here where our team watches something, and that's in some of the future content that I'm going to play them because I love these videos. And while I was watching one the other day, knowing I was going to talk to you, I realized that it's exactly what we were just talking about. They're all very human stories told by really talented human storytellers.
Right.
So there are these moments in these stories that you're learning a lot about where your favorite ads came from, where your favorite ideas came from, but you're also getting a sense for everyone's humanity. Right. And it makes you feel something, which I think that's how we really learn, is when we feel something. So,
you look at a guy like David, I think it's David Droga.
Yeah.
That was the hot agency for a while. That was where everyone,
wasn't it?
And he is just a real live human being. He's just a guy.
Yeah, he's just a nice guy.
He's great and he's creative, but he had his challenges and his battles too. And you look at any of those videos, they're really, like I said, if I were doing a 15-week semester or I would, a advertising fundamentals, type 101 class or something, every week I'd show one of those videos just because they're that valuable.
I hope people do. So we'll link to a couple that you edited here on your 100th episode page.
Jerry, did you happen to watch Jerry Della Femina?
Yeah, I watched part of it. I thought that might be one of yours.
That was a funny one. I knew you'd like that one when you said you watched him.
Yeah, that was a good one. There's so many good ones. I literally like every single one. It's such good storytelling and incredible editing, of course.
Oh, well, thank you.
You being one of the best. So speaking of giving back, and I'm not going to keep you much longer, but right now you're serving on the board of 2 nonprofits. They're very different, but in some ways I think they're kind of related. They're very environmental. They show what you care about. Can you just tell me a little bit about Hold Fast and Friends
Sure.
of the
The
Blue Ridge?
first one is Hold Fast. It was created by a good friend of mine and a true hero, Dan Knott, who 22 years in the military, 12 deployments, I'll do the Cliff Notes version, came back and he realized he was broken. Yeah. It was in all part of his lives. You could tell that his experiences, what he brought back from his deployments, broke him. and he went out on the water to be a waterman like his grandfather was, and realized out there that he calls it nature-based and work-based therapy really allowed him to open up to admit that I'm broken, and allowed him to go get the next step in the help he needed.
Yeah.
In the military, I've learned they call them psychs, to go to a psych and then take the next step. So he formed this organization called Not Alone, Hold Fast. And that's what it does. It takes our veterans who are in need, men and women, and even first responders, lets them come out. A lot of it's water work. A lot of it's on the water. They'll oyster in the winter, they'll crab in the summer, and it's just veterans on the boat. I'm the only non-veteran in the organization. And they're allowed to open up because they've all had these similar experiences. And then that allows them to then go through and then get into a program with a psych that they have on staff there as well. And it's been tremendously successful. And Dan is one of the better human beings on the planet. He has helped so many people. He's the hardest working person I've ever seen, Yeah,
I bet.
But, just from the sheer force of his will and the sheer humanity he has, he's created this great organization. And they've expanded from not just oystering and crabbing. They've gone into shoreline restoration. They're doing eco tours. They had kids from Norfolk State out there in the marshes. So, and the veterans who are there in the program, they can stay for a day, they can stay for a week, they can stay for a month, however long they need to be there to get the help they need. So it really, I'm really proud of that one. Real quick on that one. When I was at the Brand Center, Dan was starting up, and he asked me for help with the messaging, with the branding, with the look. Yeah. And I have put it out to my students, and I had 5 students, all volunteers, came to this for a variety of reasons. One kid said, well, my neighbor was a veteran and he's having tremendous problems. And another kid was having problems of her own, and whatever that is. I have never been more proud of a group of students than that team. This wasn't anything they were getting graded on. This wasn't even, let's do a brand sprint on Campbell's soup or anything. These people were saving lives. And that's what I always would tell them is, see, what you're learning at the Brand Center is just not for advertising. You can take that problem solving stuff you're doing. They created a brand essence video and showed it to, 4 veterans and the rest of the board. And these 5 20-something-year-old students had these guys in tears. And the one comment I remember is one veteran said, how did you get into my brain?
That's amazing.
And the teacher is like, they really did their research well. Yeah. But to see that, and so I was very proud, most proud I've ever been of a team of students. Yeah. So that's Hold Fast, and they're out of Gloucester, Virginia. Friends of the Blue Ridge, it just came up really last year. My wife is on the board of the Blue Ridge Children's Museum. Yeah. And Friends of the Blue Ridge does a lot of work with them. And they invited us down to their annual meeting in Roanoke last year. And, we talked a little bit, and there's some, it's typical with a lot of brands, Steve, and you deal with these all the time. It's like, what are we? Yeah. And I threw that question out there. I said, why do you exist? Why am I here? What do you do? And they were just blown away by that.
Yeah. It's like they hadn't thought of it.
They hadn't thought why. What they do is not as much the Blue Ridge Parkway. There's a Blue Ridge Parkway Foundation or something like that does the Parkway. The Friends of the Blue Ridge works with the communities in each of these areas. So the Humpback Rocks is our part of the Friends of the Blue Ridge, and they give out, they'll do charitable things. They'll build playgrounds. They'll help people out. They'll give out scholarships to high school students who want to go to college. Hurricane Helene did tremendous damage down in North Carolina. So Friends is helping kind of help put things back together. There's still, we've kind of lost sight of Hurricane Helene in North Carolina and down Asheville and Boone. They're still just getting over it. Even parts of Virginia, Damascus.
Yeah, absolutely. There.
Virginia Creeper Trail, totally wiped out, totally wiped out. And that was their, and the AT is down there too. And that was a big part of their ability to survive was people doing the creeper trail and walking the AT. And when that's gone, the community suffers. So Friends is much more of a community-based organization that is of course trying to preserve, the environmental beauty of the area, but also preserve and enhance, and encourage the unique cultures. And you've been up and down the Blue Ridge,
Yep.
And you get into Carolina, it's a little different than here. And, so they came to me and said, hey, we'd love to have you part of the organization to kind of help us decide who we are, and also differentiate that it's, the Blue Ridge is just not a parkway. A lot of people think the Blue Ridge Parkway and that's it, but it's,
and then
it's
they're
a
done.
Area with communities and people and problems. And, and again, you get Hurricane Helene come in and so that's been a lot of fun. Brilliant. It's something different. And it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Good for you for giving back, man. And they're lucky to have you. I mean, I think it kind of comes back to several of the things we talked about is that, even like you told your students, storytelling can be really a powerful force for good.
Right.
So, when you have the talents or the hard-won techniques and abilities to tell a story a certain way to make an audience feel something, using it for not just commerce is really it's a privilege, and it's something I think we all need to look to do every opportunity we get to do it.
And you're exactly right, Steve, because a lot of it, people, when they think of brand, they think of a product or a thing you buy, and that is the brand. But when you start looking around like organizations of Hold Fast and Friends of the Blue Ridge and the Children's Museum, there's a brand to everything and a story.
Absolutely.
There's, Hold Fast and Friends of the Blue Ridge, although you can buy a license plate, doesn't sell something you pull off the shelf. Right. It is helping people, saving people's lives, literally saving people's lives, helping people get back on the feet, and the stories there. So I think brand a lot of time gets misused as just an advertising word.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's so important for organizations like them because, brand and reputation are synonymous and what people that they need to support them think of them is going to relate directly into how much support they get.
Right.
And so brand for organizations like that, I think, is even more important, and yet they get the least amount of help.
Yeah, exactly. And even I know you do a lot of hospital work and a lot of medical work. And, the last thing you want to see your hospital do is do price item commercial.
Yeah, right.
Today, this week only, appendix is, $27, if you've got Medicare, whatever it is.
That would not go well.
See, but again, there's a brand there and, that's the story has to be told.
Yeah.
And the problems they're solving for the people they're helping, and again, it's not buying a 36-inch LED TV, it's saving somebody's life type thing. So, that's again what I tried to tell the students when I taught at the Brand Center was this doesn't have to be just for advertising. Advertising is a small part of this. You're coming up with brand storytelling, creative problem solving, and solid strategy that is the bedrock of everything, solid research and strategy. You can take that anywhere. You can take that anywhere.
It's incredible. It's an incredible skill and talent and incredibly important. And I think the more we both worked on products, but the more you go further away from products into services and experiences and things like healthcare or a nonprofit, the fact that the brand is crystal clear is even more important because if you're not actively telling your story in a way that connects with people, they're going to tell a story to themselves, and then that is going to become your brand.
Exactly. And if you aren't proactive in that,
oh my God,
you aren't proactive in saying, here's the solutions that we can provide to or mix and match with your problems, and we can help you. It's kind of one-on-one stuff, but so many people miss it.
Yeah.
And I one more thing on the inspiration videos. I think Brian Collin mentions it, but I've heard him say this, that a brand is a promise that is consistently kept. And it's almost one of the best definitions of a brand I've ever heard.
I love that
because
definition.
it is. Because
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. And, one thing about keeping a promise and keeping it consistently is communicating consistently.
Right.
Because
Exactly.
in a complete, lack of communication, just like
Right.
if any friend or anyone,
Right.
any relationship, and you have a relationship with brands,
Right.
when the other party is silent, you're going to fill it in.
Well,
And
nature abhors a vacuum, right?
yeah,
And
exactly. So it gets filled with all kinds of crazy stuff.
exactly, especially these days.
Yeah. So
Especially
it's
these days.
why you have to tell your story. So,
Yep.
so I don't keep you all day. I have a couple final questions. And man, thank you so much for being the 100th guest after being the first. This has been a blast today.
I'll start writing notes for the 200.
Yeah, please do, because you're coming back. We're going to just keep doing it.
Yeah, good.
So this is a question I just love to ask. What would you call this chapter of your life right now?
It's a lot of fun. I mean, it is that giving back and slowing down, giving back. It really has been a lot of fun. I'm freelance editing. I may be doing a little teaching again. Working with things that mean a lot to me that I don't have to worry about a salary or anything. I go down and help Dan down there or with friends up here, or mentoring students. In fact, I've got other friends sending their friends' sons and daughters to me to help mentor them, and I'm like, that's fine. And I put them in connection, so it really is that kind of giving back part of the game. And, I've been running up and down the road for a while because I've managed to never live near I worked, when I literally moved to the Chesapeake Bay and like 3 weeks later, Boyko calls me and offers me a job back in Richmond. And then we moved up here to the mountains and so it's kind of staying home, hanging out with family and friends and kids and grandkids and all that good stuff. Yeah.
That's great, man. You deserve it. You certainly went to the school of hard knocks for so long and accomplished so much. I think it's really cool that you're in a phase of giving back.
I did have a Pontiac that had 315,000 miles on it.
I think that's a major life accomplishment right there.
The funny thing was, and we don't need to get into this story, but it had 200, it was a Pontiac Vibe, had 299,999, the whole thing. And I'm riding through West Point, Virginia on the way home, and I've got my camera out waiting to flip over, and it stayed there.
Oh, that's great.
I emailed GM and said, you don't have enough faith in your product to let that roll over to 300,000 miles.
Yeah.
Come on. It's an electronic odometer. It's not like it's run out of ticks.
Yeah. It could have kept going.
Yeah.
That's crazy that they were just like, nah, nobody will drive one of these that long.
No one will ever get there.
Scott will.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So last question, and I'll let you go, because I asked you this last time, and I always like, when I have guests back, I always like to ask this again.
Sure.
Sitting here today, if you could tell your younger self something, what would you tell your younger self today?
Don't worry about it so much. Don't worry about it so much. It'll happen when it's meant to happen, and again, because if you would have told me 19 years ago when I was running Gray Box Editorial, I'd come back from, if you'd have told me 25 years ago that I'd be the vice president of a large media company in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
If you told me 22 years ago that I'd own a editorial company and we were doing Geico and all sorts of fun ads. And if you told me 19 years ago that I'd been a college professor, I would have said, you're out of your mind. So it just happens, I went to undergrad for mass comm. So I've been, and I stayed kind of in that industry my whole career, but boy, it's taken some fun turns, and to get to do what I've done. And this, cause you've been in the industry, this industry is really, really fun, brand storytelling types things, whether it's advertising, whatever. Again, you can't get so far into it that you can't see the outside world, and you got to get out, take a break, and experience the outside world. But boy, it's been a lot of fun. Everything from flying an ultralight around with a camera on my shoulder to being in a boxing ring with Sweet Pea Whitaker for HBO promo.
Yeah.
Who the hell gets to do that? So how lucky am I, right? So I better give back. I better give back now.
Yeah. Good for you, man. Yeah. And that's the greatest thing. I mean, if you like being in situations you have to figure out, and you like having things change and being able to come up with solutions for them.
Right.
Like, this is going into our 30th year.
Yeah.
And I still love it because
Yep.
the stuff that's changed, it just keeps me excited instead of it
Yep.
becoming boring, you
Yep.
know? So it's just a blast. So good for you, man.
Yeah, and I think there's to tell my younger self or any person going through their careers, don't stop learning stuff.
Yeah, right.
If I've with AI and even with nonlinear editing, when Avids came out and Final Cut and all that, I saw way too many colleagues put their head in the ground and drag their feet, saying, "This cannot happen. It will not happen. It's going to take my job." It's like, it's only going to take your job if you stop learning about it and let it take your job.
Yeah.
Creativity. There's no monopoly on creativity. It used to be to do editorial and storytelling, you had to have a certain checkbook to either buy the gear, but now you don't. So now real creativity is more valuable versus how much memory you can buy in your Avid system, whatever.
Yeah, I remember those days.
Avid,
Well, yeah, I remember the Avid days. You and I went through that together. Hey, man, thanks so much for being here. And I think
My
that
pleasure.
message of just stay curious and keep learning
Yep.
is probably one
Yep.
of my favorite things. So,
And give back. Give back.
yep. So, hey, man, thank you so much for being on the show for the 100th episode. I think that's so, I love the symmetry of it. So,
Yeah.
I'll see you for the 200 episode, but I'm sure I'll see you for lunch.
200th, but we'll grab a pizza before that.
Yeah, probably before 200. I'll see you for a lunch
Thank
soon.
you, Steve. Appreciate it.
All right, man, I'll talk to you soon. Want to hear more inspiring stories? Subscribe on your preferred podcast app so you don't miss an episode. And if you like what we're doing, please rate, review, and share. It's the best way to support us. Thank you for listening to Brand Story.